Hello and welcome. You're watching UTV Live at 6.
Good evening. These are the stories making the headlines.
A major development in the Presbyterian Church scandal. Tonight, UTV speaks exclusively to parents who believe their children might not have been targeted by a paedophile teacher if the church had acted sooner.
It's been described as the biggest shake-up facing our schools for a century. The Supreme Court rules Christian-focused religious education taught here is unlawful.
And after doctors take a vote of no confidence in the Health Minister, Mike Nesbitt admits he can't stop GPs going private.
When they talk about a hybrid system, they basically mean those who can afford to paying. That, of course, runs against the fundamental tenet of the National Health Service.
Also tonight, All Blacks rugby great Sean Fitzpatrick honours the first captain of the famous team, Dave Gallagher, back in his Donegal hometown.
And we have a yellow warning for snow and ice in force overnight tonight. We can expect some freezing conditions with snow flurries in places. I'll have all of the details later with the forecast.
Tonight, there's an explosive development in the safeguarding scandal within the Presbyterian Church. The parents of two boys who were targeted by their paedophile teacher have told UTV their children might not have suffered abuse if the Presbyterian Church had taken action when previous allegations were raised.
38-year-old William Maher, a former teacher and voluntary youth group leader within the church, was jailed earlier this year for sex offences against the children. His case is central to the uncovering of serious and significant failings within the Presbyterian Church, which were revealed last Wednesday.
Tonight we hear for the first time from the parents who triggered the investigation which led to the moderator's resignation. Tori Watson has this exclusive report.
A predator who carried out his crimes where children should have been safe. 38-year-old William Maher is currently behind bars for sex offences against two young boys. Their parents first made aware of the shocking revelation when the former teacher mysteriously disappeared from the classroom in May 2022.
There were obviously, rumours circulating, parents talking to each other, and then we found out he was being charged with sexual offences against children. At that stage, I had a conversation with my child and said, just so you know, your former teacher is being taken to court for being inappropriate with children. And at that point, my child confessed he had been a victim in the classroom of Mr. Maher as well.
I was then informed that her son had said my son was also a victim. I spoke to my son about it and initially he denied it. Then, as we were driving home one evening, he said to me, "Tell me again what was said." And I told him what was said. And he said, yes, actually, that was true, and that he was also a victim. I was driving at the time and it was really difficult not to crash the car.
The families then directly contacted the school and the police. While a criminal investigation was launched, it was the parents' own inquiries which uncovered further heartbreak. Not only had Maher targeted school corridors, but also church aisles. Allegations about his actions as a voluntary youth leader in the Presbyterian Church in Ireland dating back to 2018, 4 years before the abuse their own children suffered.
The church were made aware that inappropriate behaviours had taken place with a child in that congregation. My understanding is that they dealt with this as an internal matter. I'm not sure of the details. Had the church taken appropriate steps at that stage, there's every chance that our children would not have been victims of his at a later date. They turned a blind eye. They excused his behaviour, whatever decisions they made. But it has directly led to our children being victims, and ourselves and our families having to be put through something you would never wish on anybody.
Exactly 1 week ago, the moderator of the Presbyterian Church resigned after significant and serious failings were uncovered in safeguarding practices within the church. The case which sparked that internal review, that of William Maher.
When the news broke on Wednesday that the Presbyterian Church of Ireland moderator was going to resign over safeguarding failings within the church, and then you subsequently learned that Maher had been the case to lift the lid on some of those issues internally, What was your gut reaction at that time?
We welcome any investigation that brings perpetrators like Maher out of the shadows and into the light. For us, it's been such a fast-paced developing story that it's taken us both by surprise. But the other element is, victims will now have a platform to tell their story and to tell their truth, which we think is the most important part of that investigation.
It's important that any review or investigation is open and transparent and carried out by external agencies. There's no point in the Presbyterian Church marking its own homework. Similarly, we would call for the same investigation to go on in the Education Authority. We have no idea whether any investigation has gone into Maher and his employment in multiple schools within the area, and we call on the EA to step up and do the same thing and carry out an external independent review of his behaviours over the years he was employed by the EA.
Both families are taking legal action against the EA. Meanwhile, the PSNI has now launched a criminal investigation into safeguarding issues within the church, its scope extending beyond that of William Maher.
And Tori Watson joins us. So what's being said about this now, Tori?
Well, Paul, UTV has contacted a number of organisations and they've sent us a few responses. First off, you've got the Education Authority. A spokesperson told UTV that this had been an incredibly difficult ordeal for the children and families and that the safety and well-being of all pupils remains EA's highest priority. It says it treats all safeguarding matters with the utmost seriousness. In this specific case, the EA said we provided advice to the school in line with safeguarding guidance, which it says clearly outlines steps for recording, responding to and reporting any concerns. They went on to say that the EA and school fully cooperated with the police inquiries and that today they continue to work with partner agencies to review, learn and enhance safeguarding protocols. Meanwhile, the Presbyterian Church in Ireland, they said that since a criminal investigation has been launched by the police, they're unable to comment on any part of that investigation, but the church is fully cooperating with that process. They've also encouraged anyone who's been affected to contact the dedicated police investigation team. But look, at the heart of tonight's report are families who have dealt with the unimaginable, and they have spoken out not only to continue their fight for answers, but to ensure that this never happens to anyone else ever again.
Watson, thank you. It's been described as the biggest shake-up facing our schools for a century. The Supreme Court has ruled that the teaching of religious education here is unlawful and does not comply with human rights standards.
A father and daughter team from Belfast who originally challenged the Department of Education on the RE curriculum here said that they feel immensely proud and vindicated, while a Department of Education spokesperson said the minister would provide guidance to schools in the near future. Eden Wilson has the story.
It all started in a Belfast classroom 6 years ago. A young girl being taught RE brought her learning home to her non-religious family. When she began to pray before dinner, her father voiced his concerns to the school. They said they were following the set curriculum. And so the father took his case against the Department of Education to the High Court in Belfast.
We won that first case. It then went to the appeals court. The appeals court felt that the fact that the parents could opt their child out meant that their human rights weren't being breached. But then in the Supreme Court they dug into it more and found out that in actual fact with the collective worship, the way the RE curriculum is written by the 4 largest denominational churches, and then you have the impact of things like every school in Northern Ireland being of a Christian ethos, and all of our state schools in integrated sector also have church transfer representatives on the board. This in its totality amounts to indoctrination.
The Supreme Court ruled that collective worship and religious education in Northern Ireland are not being taught in an objective, critical and pluralistic manner. In short, the curriculum as it stands is unlawful and breaches the European Convention on Human Rights.
What started out as a very small case in Belfast High Court has now become probably the most significant change in the education system in the last century in the jurisdiction, and that and the credit lies exclusively at the doorsteps of my client and his daughter. So I think it's fair to say that they are immensely proud of the achievements that they have obtained today. They have been vindicated by the Supreme Court decision.
In separate statements, both the Controlled Schools Support Council and the Council for Catholic Maintained Schools said that they will take time to reflect and consider the implications of today's judgment. Politically, opinion has been divided. The Education Committee Chair, Nick Matheson, welcomed the judgment, while the TUV leader, Jim Allister, said he was deeply disturbed by the ruling. The DUP's Carla Lockhart told UTV the outcome was disappointing.
We must continue to have Christian teaching and Christian values being able to be taught in our schools. It's been a key pillar within our schools, and many of our schools, particularly within the control sector, are built on a Christian ethos, and for me it's about protecting that going forward.
UTV contacted the Education Minister, Paul Given, for interview. He was not available. In a statement, the Department of Education said, "We will carefully consider the complex judgment and its implications and will provide advice to schools in the near future." Religious education here will change. What this will look like and when it will happen is still unclear. While opinions are divided on the Supreme Court's ruling, all are agreed that the Education Minister needs to provide guidance. Eden Wilson, UTV Live.
They issued a vote of no confidence in the Health Minister and threatened to consider working outside the NHS. But Mike Nesbitt has now offered to negotiate with GPs over their contract.
However, the Minister warned that he couldn't stop GPs from going private, something he insisted he wouldn't play a part in. He's been speaking to our health correspondent, Deborah McAleese.
All those in favour, please raise their hands.
It was a brutal message and a threat of revolt. A rebellion that Mike Nesbitt is now trying to bring to an end.
Are you going to allow GPs to exit the health service, even partially, and bring in a new model that would see some patients being charged?
I have no interest in participating in anything that would bring on a hybrid system. And let's be clear, when they talk about a hybrid system, they basically mean those who can afford to paying. That, of course, runs against the fundamental tenet of the National Health Service. So my interest is trying to repair relationships with GPs, because I know on a two-way street we need to restore trust and respect.
But does he have the power to stop it?
They're independent contractors, so actually they probably can't be stopped if that becomes their firm will.
GPs have been warning for some time that the current model of primary care is broken and that a new system is needed, potentially outside the health service.
If the department doesn't engage and we don't see improvement, we're going to have to consider all options in order to keep ourselves going. And I think at a point in time where practices' finances are so constrained by the contractual arrangements, they'll have to make a decision at a point in time that it's no longer profitable and decide on what their next steps are.
Members of this community group remember a different health service where no one worried about the cost of getting care, and that's the way they wanted to stay.
People are struggling, and I don't think it would be fair to ask them to play private.
What about people who couldn't afford to pay? Where do they go?
They wouldn't pay money. They're getting enough money.
Would you feel comfortable asking patients to pay for a GP service?
I personally don't provide a private service here in Northern Ireland for that reason. That's my personal opinion. But there are other people who are comfortable to ask people to pay. And to be honest, there are patients who are taking that option and they're going to see a private GP now and paying for it.
Dr O'Hagan said that withdrawal from NHS work is avoidable if more funding is invested in primary care. But with a health budget in trouble, can the Minister end this feud?
So I think I'm a friend of GPs, but I'm in a situation where I can't deliver what they want. But I think it's also a situation where together we can design a new contract and a new way of doing business, which will restore confidence, give more hope and deliver better outcomes, not just for patients, but for GPs as well.
Well, Deborah joins us now in the studio. Deborah, do you feel there's a thaw in relations?
Well, Rose, after the tone of that conference on Saturday, I was really expecting Mike Nesbitt to come out fighting today. But this really was him offering an olive branch. The relationships have not been good between the Health Minister and with GPs. And there has been a real appetite amongst GPs to look at other models of primary care. a lot of discussion in the past week or the past few weeks about the model that is operating in the Republic of Ireland, where some patients pay for some GP services. Now, there are some GPs here in Northern Ireland who really want to move to this hybrid model, like the Republic of Ireland, but then there are others who want to try and keep the service free for all, but they say they can't do that with the way things currently are. Today you got the sense that the Health Minister maybe agrees with that, and he really does now want to work and find a new solution and wants to look at a new contract. Now, he is up before the Health Committee tomorrow to discuss his plans for moving his focus more into primary care, to early intervention, to preventative care. But he really needs to get the GPs on board, so repairing those relationships are vital.
Deborah McAleese, thank you very much.
A veterans organisation is threatening legal action against the government's Troubles legislation to deal with Northern Ireland's past. That's according to a Conservative MP. The Prime Minister was questioned about the legislation in the House of Commons earlier after the bill faced criticism during its second reading yesterday. Our political correspondent Vicky Hawthorne is at Westminster for us. So Vicky, what did we learn today about the potential for legal action by veterans?
Well, Paul, as you say, it was Prime Minister's question time today that provided the opportunity for MPs to raise directly with Sir Keir Starmer the concerns, the questions they have about the government's legacy legislation. And specifically, it is Conservative and Unionist MPs who are repeatedly raising with the government their concerns that what is in this legislation does not go far enough to protect veterans. And it was the former Brexit Secretary, Conservative David Davis, who raised with the Prime Minister. He said today that he had been made aware that this veterans organisation, the Special Air Force Service Regimental Association, has sent a pre-action letter, a letter threatening legal action around this legislation to the government, because the association says it's already having an impact on recruitment to the association and morale. And David Davis wants the Prime Minister to confirm and to say outright that he will stand by veterans. The Prime Minister says that's exactly what the government is doing.
Will he involve himself personally to make sure that 60, 70, 80-year-old soldiers who have carried out actions which most of us would view as heroic are not persecuted in the coming years? Because now it's a matter not of national security but of national honour.
There will be protection from repeat investigations, so the Commission doesn't go over old ground without compelling reasons. There will be protection from cold calling and protection in old age, so that elderly veterans are respected. And those who do contribute to the legacy process will have a right to anonymity, a right to stay at home to give evidence remotely, and a right to be heard through the Commission.
And the Secretary of State had a second day of questions about the legacy legislation.
Yes, it must have felt a bit like deja vu for Hilary Benn, because he took all the questions yesterday during that second reading debate, and he also faced questions during Northern Ireland question time today. He was asked again, as he was yesterday, by the TUV leader Jim Allister for assurances that no former paramilitaries could serve on a new victims panel that this legislation will set up. Hilary Benn, he said it several times yesterday, and he repeated it again. He said he would give his personal assurance that that would not happen. But MPs like Jim Allister will want to see these assurances in black and white in the legislation. And these last few days here at Westminster have simply highlighted the challenges ahead for the government on this legislation.
Hawthorne in London, thank you.
Still to come, from Ireland to New Zealand, Dave Gallagher became the very first captain of the All Blacks, and now Kiwi greats return to Donegal to honour the remarkable man.
And Louise will be here with the forecast.
Time now to look at the headlines making tonight's ITV news at 6:30.
And here's Lucrezia Milarini.
Coming up, the Defence Secretary warns Russia, we know what you're doing and we're ready. It's after a Russian spy ship is spotted on the edge of UK waters for the second time in a year. A call in the Commons as the Environment Agency begins to clear up this mountain of waste dumped close to a river in Oxfordshire. New weather warnings as snow falls across the country, and the day after the night before, after Scotland's epic entry to the World Cup. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
The hospitality industry, along with the fast food sector, have called for a reduction in VAT rates at next week's budget.
They say that a change is vital for their survival, with rates across the border in the Republic due to be slashed next year. Our economics correspondent Jordan Moats has this special report.
You'd have to be a glass half full kind of person to remain positive ahead of the upcoming budget. Amid all the talk about rising taxes, there's a call to do the complete opposite. Willie Jack has owned pubs for decades. He'd like to see a reduction in VAT to stay competitive with counterparts in the Republic.
Our little group of companies, and that's a couple of pubs and a coffee shop and an off sales, probably pays over 2 million in tax to the revenue every year. So I think we make a very big contribution. When you're in the hospitality business, we like a level playing field. And unfortunately in the north, we don't have one. When you've got a different rate of VAT over an invisible line in a field in North Monaghan, it's not fair.
When you buy a pint of beer, the first thing that happens is the VAT man comes looking for 20% of that pint. That goes straight to the VAT man. From what's left of that pint, the business can then look at their costs. So things like staffing, rates, other duties that are due on that pint of beer. And that leaves you with your profit. That's then taxed once again. What hospitality would like is some of that 20% reduced, so more money in the pot that can be invested in the wider business. The rate in the Republic is already lower at 13.5%. That will fall to 9% next July on food. Already it's having an impact on border businesses. Those leading the charge for change believe long term the Treasury won't lose out.
So this would stabilise industry. 18 months or so in, you start to see that pass through to the customer. All of our research again says the Chancellor would be break even within 2 or 3 years and then be a plus because they get more VAT from more being sold. We're already seeing people now cancelling weddings and moving across. A wedding of £10,000, that's probably about 100 people, you know. You're looking there at almost £1,000 dearer.
The body representing fast food restaurants has compiled a report on the economic benefit of reducing VAT here. It's been handed to MLAs in the hope they will back the campaign.
We just see European countries like Germany, who is dropping their VAT rate from 17% to 7% in January because of the pressure of sharing a land border with other countries with a lower VAT rate. Come July next year, we will be sharing a land border with the Republic of Ireland with 11% deficit in VAT, which will cripple our small businesses in Northern Ireland.
There's a belief Northern Ireland could be used as a test zone. By this time next week, we'll all know if the Chancellor has listened. Jordan Moats, UTV Live.
Carrick Rangers have reached the final of the County Antrim Shield for the first time in 33 years after beating Larne on penalties. Carrick took the lead with Adam Leckie firing the home side ahead, but Larne hit back with Ryan Nolan netting for the visitors. After extra time, the game went to penalties. Jimmy Callagher stepped up to shoot Carrick into the final. They'll face either Ballymena or Cliftonville in the final.
Finally, who knew that the New Zealand rugby team has its origins firmly in Donegal? Well, Dave Gallagher, who was born in Ramelton, is revered as an All-Ireland Blacks hero as the nation's first ever captain.
And at the weekend, a special service was held in his hometown for the 120th anniversary of his achievements. Jordan Moore has the story.
In Ramelton, Ireland remembers the boy who left, and New Zealand remembers the leader of men that he became. Dave Gallagher was the original All Blacks captain on their first tour of Europe and the USA back in 1905. Now, 120 years later, another All Black legend has made the opposite journey, exchanging soil from New Zealand's national stadium with that from Dave's hometown in a ceremony wrapped in tradition.
As a past All Black captain, I've done the full circle in terms of All Black legacy to come to Dave's hometown and to be able to bring a bit of his other town to here is really special. So it just means a lot to us as past All Blacks. I'm here representing them, and to bring he's like our son, and he's your son too. So we're very honoured.
Soil is sacred in Maori culture, symbolising a spiritual connection to the earth. And while Gallagher had a special connection to Ramelton, he would never be buried in his native town. He was instead laid to rest in Belgium, where he was killed in World War I.
He died at the Battle of Passchendaele in 1917. He's dead 108 years now, but his legacy is still resonates through the All Black teams even to this day. So today we're going to honour him in a symbolic homecoming, if you like.
Both nations are connected by their love of rugby, but for those here from the Maori community, that connection runs deeper.
I think the wonderful thing about Ireland is that they actually understand song. To us, a waiata, which is what we perform today, is all about sharing kind of our past and our history and our spirit with the people. And it's received the best by the Irish because they understand it.
And of course, in traditional New Zealand fashion, the day had to end with a haka.
The haka comes to Donegal. Jordan Moore with that report. Now, it's going to come as no surprise that we have a new weather warning for ice.
And Louise is braving the elements outside for us. It looks pretty chilly there, Louise.
You can say that again, Rose. Yes, we have a new yellow warning for snow and ice coming into force there just at 5 o'clock. Staying with us right through until midday tomorrow. Snowfall again over the Sperrins, along the Glen Sheehan Pass, 2 to 5 centimetres possible there. Higher levels over the mountains. We could even see a few flurries to lower levels. Tonight is cold. Tomorrow night is even colder. Temperatures falling away to lows of -5 to -7 degrees Celsius. But as we get towards Friday and into the weekend, we have a slight change on the way. Something slightly more unsettled, but ever so slightly milder as we head into the weekend. But for now, it will remain cold with some slippery surfaces, so do take care. Here is this evening's forecast.
After a wet start, weather predictions are looking bright. UTV Weather, sponsored by the Grant Vortex Boiler.
So we have a very cold night ahead of us. The snow and ice warning in place until midday tomorrow. We can expect snowfall to push inland, falling over the higher ground, but we could see a few flurries even to lower levels with some icy stretches in places. Taking a look at the pressure sequence, we have high pressure out to the west that has allowed that cold biting northerly wind today, which really took the edge off the temperatures. Now those winds will ease off tomorrow, but it will still stay very cold with a few sleet and snow showers to start the day. Now tonight, temperatures will plummet very quickly, falling away to lows of possibly -5 degrees Celsius. That snow over the Sperrins along the Glen Sheehan Pass and even to lower levels will start to settle for a time, but it's icy stretches, freezy conditions with frosty conditions as well as we head towards dawn. Now tomorrow gets off to a very cold and icy start. We will continue to see some icy stretches lingering for a time, so give yourself some extra time to defrost the car tomorrow morning. Sleet and rain will fall over higher ground but ease off into the afternoon. Some bright sunny spells developing. The winds will become lighter tomorrow afternoon as well. Temperatures struggling to highs of just 6 degrees Celsius. Across the rest of Ireland, it's a very similar start tomorrow morning. Frosty, icy conditions lingering through for a time, but it's a largely dry and bright day. Some sunny spells into the afternoon. Moderate breeze around the coast with highs of 6 or 7 degrees Celsius. Now tomorrow evening, it looks likely to become the coldest night of the week. Temperatures will very quickly fall away, potentially dipping to lows of -5 to -7 degrees Celsius. A very cold, icy and frosty start then on Friday morning, but Friday doesn't look too bad. Temperatures slowly starting to increase through the daytime. Highs of around 8 degrees Celsius, but we have some cloudy conditions with rain pushing in through Friday evening. That is very latest. Bye-bye.
UTV Weather, sponsored by the Grant Vortex Boiler.
That's all we have time for this Wednesday. Paul will be back at 10:50.
The ITV News continues with Lucrezia Millarini, from Rose, from me and the rest of the team. Good evening.
Good evening.